Is Sinners the best vampire movie since Blade? What's going on, guys? It's GV Mike. I just recently watched Sinners in IMAX 70mm 15 perf. Let me tell you, this is the experience you really want to have if you're an action horror movie fan, especially films that have great music, and this film has got it all. Now, before we get into it, I'm gonna break this video up into two parts, one that is spoiler free, so no spoilers at all, and one part that's all spoilers. In the spoiler version, we can dig deeper into the story, some of the characters, and what I think the movie was actually about. So first, guys, let's talk about the theater. Now, Ryan Coogler does a really good job of mentioning where you can see this film in IMAX in various places around the country in the United States. I'm not going to be listing them all here. In this image, you can see various formats that the film is being shown in. In the description below, I will drop the video link where you can see Ryan Coogler break down all the different formats of what is being shown and where you can go and watch them. So I actually watched the movie at Universal Cinema AMC at City Walk, Hollywood. This is an amazing theater. It was my first time there. I got to park in the Jurassic Park parking lot. Here are some shots of the theater, us just walking into the theater, getting ready to check everything out. I normally go watch films at the Alamo in downtown Los Angeles. For me, I like the food there. I like the drinks. A lot of times they have themed food. Even the popcorn will have a different flavor, things like that. This theater doesn't necessarily have all of those things, but the IMAX experience was why we were there. So Theater 19 has a dual laser IMAX setup. So it uses two laser projectors for brighter and a clearer image. One thing I will say is the audio in this theater was incredible. It was a 12-channel sound system. You can feel all the hits when it came to stomps during soulful moments, when there's songs being played. You can even feel the rumble when there's jump scares. The audio fully immerses you into the rest of the film. Just outside Theater 19, they also had a replica setup of the costumes that Smoke and Stack wore in the films. You can even see Mary's dress located there. It's pretty cool. I watched a couple trailers. I didn't really research the film very much, so I had no idea what I was actually walking into. I just knew it was a horror film and that was it. So it was nice to see a little bit of the film in real life form. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about the movie premise here. Again, I'm not gonna get too deep into it. Sinners is an action horror movie directed by Ryan Coogler and starring Michael B. Jordan. The time period is during the 1930s in Mississippi. World War I veterans Smoke and Stack are involved with Al Capone's criminal empire. They run into some problems back in Chicago, so they need to leave Chicago and head to Mississippi. That's where the film takes place. Now, right away, I really appreciated that a vampire film during the 1930s was even a thing. For the most part, vampire movies are normally in modern times, so like the 1990s, early 2000s, a lot of vampire movies were coming out then. But if we talk about more classical things, we're thinking the 1700s and the 1800s. So it was very cool to see a vampire movie in the South during the 1930s Prohibition era. A very refreshing time frame. Watching this movie in IMAX 70mm, it really changes the game. I've seen a couple movies in IMAX. I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't very blown away in the IMAX experience, and that's really why I haven't been back. But just to gloss over it, essentially they shot on 65mm film and they used two different cameras, an IMAX 70mm 15 perf camera and an Ultra Panavision 70mm camera. Combining these aspect ratios together, at various points of the film, you'll see a letterbox go to a completely full screen. Now, this is really cool, again, for key story moments and sometimes just getting to know characters and seeing certain things much closer and better in detail. Things like getting closer to the action, we'll get closer to a character's face so you can feel and see more emotion. And we'll cover this later, but the music, man, when there's instruments being played at certain scenes, the camera will get so much closer to an instrument. You could see how weathered it is, how much history and how much lineage is in this music and in this instrument and the soul of this musician and character. But this brings me to the visuals and the cinematography. Now, for me, the visuals, the quality, the cinematography is on another level. There's scenes where we're getting really close and we're learning a lot about the character, especially early on in the film. And you'll see this in the trailers as well. So again, I'm not spoiling anything, but there's a couple moments where characters are in a car talking and the depth of field changing between who's speaking. It's very subtle, but it adds so much detail. From one perspective, it feels like a video game cutscene where when characters are talking, it focuses on one character speaking, and then the depth of field sways to another character, allows them to speak, and you can see all the details in their face. Again, in the 1930s, people aren't wearing insane clothing and, like nowadays, right? The detail isn't as it is today. People are wearing a little bit more simplistic things when it comes to suits and hats, especially for these guys. This also brings me to the CGI. Sometimes there's scenes where you can't tell if it's CGI or it's real. For the most part, specific scenes you can absolutely tell what's CGI because just certain things can't happen. Again, I'm not gonna spoil it, but when there's vampires involved, things happen. and we know when CGI or special effects need to occur. In this film, however, again, there's a lot of scenes where the camera is a little bit further away from people as they're speaking. There might be a certain use of lighting, the background as things are moving by. There's a lot of simple, subtle things happening, and everything just comes together and brings it all to life. All right, next we gotta talk about the music. This is my most favorite part of the entire film. Some people have mentioned it's similar to a musical. I wouldn't say it's a musical at all. There's musical moments in it, but definitely not a typical musical at all. But somebody as myself who's done soundtrack management for the NBA 2K series, I've also released various songs myself, I've produced for artists. Music is very important to me. Seeing how they intertwine the music into the story and almost making the music a character itself, it really blew me away. Now, Ludwig Göransson, who is behind the score of the film, absolutely nailed it. He killed it. However you want to say it, man, it was amazing. It was incredible. So shout out to him. We also have to mention that his wife, Serena, executive produced this as well, and she's a legendary violinist. So them coming together to create such a cohesive soundtrack and a sound element, it really made things much more rich and realistic. It gave it much more soul. Now, the incredible thing here about this movie and the story is that Ludwig's dad is a guitar player who loved blues. He loved all types of American blues. Ludwig himself even learned guitar from his dad, so blues runs deep in the Göransson family. Now, Ludwig and his wife were able to work with various blues producers and musicians such as Raphael Saadiq, Bobby Rush, Buddy Guy, Brittany Howard, and more. One of the characters even uses an iconic guitar, again, almost making the music and the guitar a character itself. This guitar was called the 1932 Dobro Cyclops Resonator, and man, let me tell you, the blues sounds amazing when this character, Sammy, plays. Every single scene that this character is in and he's performing, it's breathtaking and you totally get fully immersed into the songs. Me watching this in IMAX, again, you could feel the rumble, you can feel the twanginess moving around the room. There's even certain scenes where they're driving and the character's playing the guitar, and the IMAX theater I was in had wind and air, so it was brushing by you. It just made it feel like you were in the car listening to this song, listening to this kid play his heart out, use his whole soul into everything that he's got going on. It was incredible, again, to have such a talented composer like Ludwig and his wife create such an amazing experience. And just to add, Ludwig and Ryan Coogler sit down for an interview where they talk briefly about this song's inception, which is a big song that is featured in this film. This is what they said.
One of my favorite artists, songwriters, Raphael Saadiq.
Yep.
Never worked with him before. This song came about us sitting down first. I remember I called you on FaceTime. You guys had a little conversation.
Yeah.
We started playing guitars together. Guitars tuned in D. And then he was like, hey man, I have this idea of a blues song. I've had it my whole life.
Jesus.
And
Jesus, bro.
And it's been on my mind a lot lately, but I've this concept of, I lied to you. And it was exactly what the movie was about.
That's crazy.
Yeah, talking about his dad, and dad's a preacher, and I lied to you, I love the blues.
All right, so you can clearly see that everybody involved in this film was very into the music and what it meant to the film, especially the world of American blues. Mississippi blues at that. Overall, I would see this film again, and I probably will, in a regular format just to get the total experience. Watching it in IMAX and seeing the different aspect ratios, it definitely blew me away. It keeps my attention because my brain likes to go here and there. But in a regular format, I would love to see exactly how it's shot and what it looks like, as that's how most people will probably end up seeing it. But if you can see it in IMAX, yo, do yourself a favor, go get a ticket and check it out. You will not be sorry. You will enjoy this film. So if you've made it this far, like I said, there's gonna be spoilers. So you may want to turn this off or leave and come back later after you've seen it. For everybody that's seen the film, yo, let's really get into it. Let's talk about Sammy and his guitar, right? Sammy is such an amazing character and he really brings you into the world of blues. You can tell that his character was very much so written as a conduit to have us view the blues and the soul that blues has in this world. Now, there's a moment when Sammy is playing his song, I Lied to You, at the Juke, and everything dives really deep into the history of music, the lineage that came before him and after him. It's pretty intense, and in my personal opinion, I was watching that scene and I felt enlightened. I felt so appreciative for the world of music, all the different cultures that take part into the world of music, dance, all the things they were throwing in there. I also realized that isn't everybody. I know some people might walk away from that scene and go, well, what did I just see? What did I just watch? Doesn't mean that there's a problem with anybody. It's just Everybody's gonna see that scene and they're gonna go one way or the other, in my personal opinion. It's very polarizing. If you're watching this in IMAX and you have an incredible sound system, you actually get to feel this scene. So you really do feel immersed into this big party of like a never-ending world, an infinity universe of music. It's incredible just to see the homage that is paid here in this film. Is this the best vampire movie since Blade?
Some mother are always trying to ice skate uphill.
Well, here's why I'm mentioning this. There's certain elements in vampire films, for instance, like the eye glow, right? I felt like the eye glow in this movie was incredible, very similar to Salem's Lot. I recently saw Salem's Lot like 6 months ago. The eye glow in Salem's Lot is super creepy and scary. Didn't matter if it was the kid character or the adult characters. It's a very creepy element, a very creepy effect. Like they nailed it in this film. It sounds like the actors had to wear contacts so they can help create that effect. And I'm sure they used some CGI to really gloss it up and get that effect over to the viewers. Also, there's a part in the movie where you see multiple vampires and they have different colors of eye glow. For instance, the main vampire or the maker vampire, however you want to say them in the Coogler vampire universe, Remick, an Irish immigrant, his eye color is red. Now, no other vampire in this universe, from what I noticed, was red. Everybody else had a silverish color, a bluish silverish color. Maybe there was a gold color. I noticed some in the background had gold colors, things like that. What does it mean? Do the different colors mean that they have more soul? They have less soul? Are they closer to being a powerful vampire? Do they have different varying levels of closeness to music? Maybe Remick's music knowledge was so great that they turned red? Who knows? But it was one fact that I really appreciated because it kept me guessing, it kept me thinking. I was more intrigued by the lore of this vampire universe. Let's talk about the vampire teeth. Most of the time in vampire films, especially the cheaper ones, you know, they just get the canines that are sharp and they're really long and so forth and so on. And we've seen that a million times, right? You've probably seen it over a dozen times. But what I appreciate is that in this film, you could tell that their teeth were kind of jaggy. It reminds me of 30 Days of Night, where this movie features vampires that are much more brutal and their teeth are much more jagged, and it looks like they're meant for ripping things apart. There's some characters in Sinners that have teeth like this, but not all of them. So I really like the variation there. Also, I thought it was cool how when you go to watch this movie, if you have no idea what's going on, you don't even really know it's a vampire movie until like 2 acts in, maybe close to the 3rd act, I'd even say. And what I mean by that is you see a whole first half of the film that's based around Smoke and Stack, their love interests and where maybe they left things off. Now they're back in Mississippi, they're catching up with people. There's a whole lot of rich detail that goes on to the story and learning about the characters. So by the time we learn that there's vampires, it's a little too late for everybody, you know what I mean? Like From Dusk Till Dawn, that legendary Salma Hayek scene. Once we learned that there's vampires in that building, man, it was over for everybody. Now at this movie's core, we can see that Remick is trying to create an army of vampires. He wants to gather people around, and later on we realize his passion for music. But this is where my theory comes into play, where I don't think Remick really cared as much to bite people and drink blood and have vampires that worship him. In my personal opinion, maybe there's a little bit of it, but for the most part, it seemed as though he really wanted to get to the soul of the music. He mentions to Sammy at one part in the movie, I need you to join me because you have something that'll help me bring my friends back. I thought this was interesting because it left a sense that there was an older history. There's vampires that were before Remick that maybe brought him on or created him, and he wanted to create this same environment. Also, it might not have been in a physical sense. Maybe these vampires were musicians. Maybe these vampires had a band. Maybe they had some kind of symphony that Remick wanted to create, or recreate, I should say. So in my personal opinion, I really think the movie was about Sammy having the blues, having this new music that had soul to it, and Remick wanted that. He wanted the soul of the music. You even see Remick play some music from his Irish roots, even doing the Irish step dance. This also expanded on the fact that vampires in this world, when they bite somebody and they drink their blood, they get access to their memories, which we see in other vampire films. They get access to their skills and their abilities, especially in things like having an affinity for music or having a skill in playing music. As I mentioned, Remick is Irish and he brings his Irish roots through his step dancing in a song that he sings in the film. He gets all these other vampires involved and creates almost like a celebration for their music and their new exposure, their new songs that they've discovered. In this Coogler vampire universe, we could explore more films and more stories that cover something as such. Now, the only other vampire movie I can think of or story I can think of that includes music is Queen of the Damned. We know that Lestat Rat, I think is how you say his name, awakens after a long slumber, and he runs into a new metal band and loves what they're doing, and he decides, let me be the lead vocalist for this band. He ends up becoming an international icon, right? Rock star. That's something I could see for a Sinners movie, expanded on a broader level, right? Using different characters. Obviously, the Cooglers and Michael B. Jordan stay working together. We probably would see them in this film. I would love to expand on that universe and see where it goes. Like, what if we had a vampire movie where there was a vampire who had a record label and they were trying to create an artist that was the biggest, best artist ever. So what they did was they signed that artist, made him a vampire, then they went and got all the other artists that sounded similar or were onto a new genre and sound and just stole their abilities by drinking their blood, creating new vampires, and now making this one vampire the ultimate artist. Where have we heard that before? Anyways, it keeps you thinking as to what we could explore into this Coogler vampire universe. I'm sure some of you out there stayed until the entire credits were done rolling. There were so many end of credits scenes that were amazing and very intriguing. Buddy Guy, who plays Sammy as an old man in the 90s, now having his own jazz club and playing for his own community, his own fans, gets visited by one of the twins. I'm not gonna say too much in case somebody is watching that hasn't before. And you can almost see Sammy playing the song that he played way back in the 30s. The amazing part here wasn't that it's just Buddy Guy, legendary blues player who's performing in this role, but again, it also shows that, well, some of the characters have been around for longer, since the 1930s. Now they look like 90s rappers themselves, right? With the Coogee sweater, and you know what I'm saying? There could be a Sinners 2, maybe it's in the 90s, maybe they can make a Sinners 2 in the 80s, who knows? For the outro of this video, I just want to end on the note that this movie really teaches you how music, from any perspective and any cultural and walk of life, you can tell that music lives on past people. It'll continue to grow onto people. It affects people on various levels. And this film just kind of shows you how that happens. Even with vampires, it looks like vampires like music too. So guys, again, if you can, go see this in IMAX. I got to really enjoy the film, probably is in the way that it was meant to be filmed. So if you've already seen the film, what do you think? Do you think there should be a sequel? Would you like to see more vampire films in the Coogler verse? What was your opinion on the moment when the whole room at the Juke turned into just a history, the whole lineage of music? Drop your comments below. Is this Vampire the best vampire movie since Blade?
Are you out of your damn mind?
Y'all tell me. Anyways, guys, I appreciate you for checking out this video. I'm gonna do more film reviews. Please like and subscribe and all those good things, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Peace out.